I've always felt like I was born out of place. Growing up in a small town where the nearest computer lab was miles away, I was that odd kid with a pocket full of broken gadgets and a head full of dreams. Even before I fully understood what most people meant by technology, I was fascinated by it. I remember sneaking into the attic to rummage through my dad's old electronics, circuit boards, wires, even that clunky, outdated computer he'd kept from the early 80s. While other kids were busy playing outside, I'd be absorbed in tinkering with every piece of hardware I could find, trying to understand how things worked. My passion for computers wasn't something I stumbled upon. It was an intrinsic part of who I was. I taught myself programming from a collection of outdated books and a long-lost computer donated by a neighbor. I spent countless nights poring over lines of code, making mistakes, and then learning from them. By the time I was 13, I had built my very first video game, a simple, pixelated adventure that, in my eyes, was nothing short of revolutionary. I remember the pride that swelled inside me when my friends gathered around to play my game. Their faces lit up with awe and curiosity. It was in that moment I realized that my dreams weren't just childish fantasies. They were the stepping stones to something bigger. University life was a whole new world. At 19, I left behind the familiar confines of my hometown to dive headfirst into the realm of computer science at a bustling university. It wasn't always easy. Being the kid from a small town in a sea of students who'd grown up with the latest tech was intimidating. But I quickly learned that determination and passion trumped any gap in experience. I found solace in late-night coding sessions in the library, in the hum of servers in our lab, and in the quiet moments before dawn when the campus was empty and full of possibilities. Graduating with honors wasn't just a personal victory. It was validation that my unconventional path had led me somewhere meaningful. Soon after, I landed a job at a promising tech startup, and I remember my first day as if it were yesterday. The energy was electric, and every keystroke felt like I was one step closer to turning those childhood dreams into reality. That small-town kid had found his place in the tech world, and every challenge, every long night of debugging, had been worth it. When I turned 27, life took an unexpected and wonderful turn. It was during one of those rare, unplanned moments when I met Allison, a talented graphic designer with an infectious smile and an artistic flair that immediately captivated me. I remember the first time our paths crossed. I was at a tech conference, juggling the usual mix of excitement and nervous energy, when she approached me with a curiosity that was as genuine as it was disarming. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, blending our worlds of code and creativity into something refreshingly beautiful. As our relationship blossomed, I found in Allison not just a partner, but a true soulmate who understood the intricate dance between passion and practicality. We quickly fell into a rhythm that balanced our differences. While I was always immersed in the ever-evolving realm of technology, she painted her world with vibrant hues of design and imagination. It wasn't long before we decided to take the next step, and 3 years into our relationship, we got married. The day of our wedding still feels surreal, a celebration of love that intertwined our dreams and realities, promising that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Marriage brought with it a new, exhilarating responsibility when our daughter Savannah was born. Holding her for the first time, I felt an overwhelming surge of love and a determination to give her the very best life possible. I dreamed of a future where she would grow up surrounded by both the innovative spirit of technology and the boundless creativity of art. I envisioned a world where her curiosity was nurtured and her talents celebrated, just as mine had been in my own, albeit different, journey. Yet, as much as I wanted to be there for every milestone, my career at the time demanded much of my attention. I was climbing the ladder in the tech startup world, and the pressure to innovate and succeed meant long hours at the office and countless nights lost in lines of code. Balancing ambition with family life became a daily challenge. I often found myself torn between the excitement of launching a new project and the quiet moments I crave with my family at home. In those moments of absence, Allison shone as a beacon of strength and dedication. She took on the role of nurturing our little family with a tenderness and resilience that left me in awe. While I was away chasing deadlines and future technologies, Allison built a warm, loving home for Savannah. I would come home to find that she had created a magical world for our daughter, filled with laughter, learning, and the kind of love that only a parent can give. There were days when the guilt of not being there enough would weigh heavily on me, and I questioned whether my career ambitions were inadvertently robbing Savannah of the precious moments of her early life. Yet, every time I saw the bond between Allison and Savannah, I understood that our choices, however difficult, were part of a bigger picture. Allison wasn't just taking care of our daughter. She was crafting a foundation of love and stability that would support her as she grew and flourished in a world that was rapidly changing. The tug-of-war between career and family was not without its moments of strain. I remember the nights when exhaustion and regret mingled, when I wondered if I was sacrificing too much of the personal for the professional. But then, Allison's unwavering support, the sight of Savannah's innocent smile, and the simple moments we shared as a family reminded me that every sacrifice was worth it. My work might have taken me away from home, but it was driven by the desire to build a better future, a future where Savannah could have opportunities one never imagined growing up in our small town. In the quiet hours of early mornings or the reflective silence of late nights, I would often find myself musing over the delicate balance we had struck. Our life was a tapestry woven from threads of love, ambition, and shared dreams. Each day brought a new challenge, a fresh test of our commitment to our individual passions and our collective responsibilities. And while the journey was far from perfect, it was undeniably ours, a blend of digital dreams and tangible love, of coding and crayon drawings, of late-night work sessions and early morning cuddles. Now, as I look back on those years, I see how every decision, every moment of tension, and every shared smile contributed to the story of our family. Allison, with her creative soul, had become the heart of our home, and Savannah, with her boundless potential, was the promise of all the good things yet to come. And in the midst of the chaos of deadlines and meetings, I found solace in the knowledge that love, in all its forms, was the true force that propelled us forward. I was 38 and fully immersed in what I believed was the pinnacle of my career, a massive project that demanded every ounce of energy and focus I could muster. For months, I'd been pouring my heart and soul into it, working long hours that blurred the line between day and night. I was riding a wave of adrenaline and anticipation, confident that this project would redefine my professional path and open doors I'd only dared to dream about. Little did I know, nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. That fateful night started out like any other late evening. I had just wrapped up another grueling day at the office. It was 2:45 a.m. when I stepped out of the building, exhausted but relieved to finally be heading home. The parking lot was dimly lit and eerily silent, a quiet that suddenly felt ominous as I made my way to my car. I remember thinking how surreal it was to be working at hours most people only experienced in nightmares, but I had grown accustomed to the sacrifices my career demanded. As I reached my car, the silence was shattered by the sharp, unmistakable sound of a gunshot. Time seemed to slow down as I felt an agonizing impact sear through my body. I was hit 3 times to be exact, once in my shoulder, another in my rib, and a final devastating shot in my leg. The pain was instantaneous and overwhelming, and I could feel my strength ebbing away as I lost more than 2.5 liters of blood. In that split second, I knew my life had irrevocably changed. The next moments were a blur. I can't even recall the exact sequence of events as I slipped away from consciousness, but I know that the world around me turned into a chaotic whirl of sirens, rushed footsteps, and desperate voices. Somehow, against all odds, I was rushed into emergency care. The doctors worked with an intensity that was almost palpable. Each second was a battle, a race against time. I later learned that they had fought not just for my survival, but for every bit of hope I carried with me. For what felt like an eternity, I existed in a liminal space between life and death. I slipped into a coma, a 16-month period during which the world carried on without me. I was suspended in darkness, a silent observer to a life that no longer felt like my own. Family, friends, and colleagues lingered by my bedside, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. I could sense their silent prayers, their hopes pinned on the possibility of a miracle. In those long, disorienting months, I began to question everything I once took for granted. I thought about the project, the countless hours I had dedicated to a dream that now seemed trivial in the face of such vulnerability. I wondered who would want to take me out like that, why anyone would resort to such extreme violence over a man engrossed in his work. Was it a random act of cruelty, or was there something more sinister at play? The unanswered questions haunted me, intermingling with the pain and confusion that filled the hospital room. When I finally woke up, the first thing I felt was a deep, unrelenting ache, not just physical, but emotional too. I was weak, my body battered, and my mind clouded with memories that didn't quite belong to me. The recovery was slow and fraught with uncertainty. Every moment of clarity brought with it flashes of that night. The cold metal of the gun, the shock of the bullet, the overwhelming sense of betrayal by a world I once trusted. I began to piece together fragments of a reality that seemed too surreal to be true. In the aftermath, whispers and theories swirled around me like a storm. Some speculated that the attack was a targeted act, a message from someone unhappy with my recent work or envious of the success I was beginning to taste. Others argued it was a case of mistaken identity, a random act of violence that left me questioning the very nature of fate and justice. Even now, as I continue to rebuild my life, I'm haunted by the possibility that there may be more to that night than met the eye, a plot twist I'm still trying to decipher. My journey through recovery has been as much about regaining my strength as it has been about confronting the shadows of that terrible night. The scars, both physical and emotional, serve as constant reminders of a life interrupted. Yet, amid the darkness, there's a flicker of determination. I know that every setback, every harrowing moment, has also paved the way for a new beginning. As I strive to reclaim my passion for life and my work, I carry with me the knowledge that even in the face of unimaginable violence, there lies an opportunity to redefine oneself and emerge stronger, ready to face whatever twists and turns the future may hold. Waking up was like emerging from a nightmare into a reality even more surreal than my fevered dreams. The first thing I noticed wasn't the sharp, piercing pain in my battered body, but the cold emptiness of my hospital room, a silence that spoke volumes. As the haze of recovery slowly lifted, I began piecing together the fragments of a life I no longer recognized. Amid the muted beeps of monitors and whispered condolences from those who cared, I was hit with a revelation that shattered every comforting illusion I had clung to. For 9 long months, Allison hadn't visited. Every day, I'd longed for her familiar presence, for the reassuring sound of her voice, only to be met with an agonizing absence. And then came the news that cut even deeper. Savannah, our little beacon of hope, had been moved to another city. The sudden betrayal was as if the world had tilted on its axis, leaving me to grapple with a darkness I never knew could exist. It wasn't long before the whispers began, and soon they transformed into stark, undeniable facts. The police informed me that Allison had been cheating on me with Derek Spencer, of all people. Derek, who had once been our daughter's school teacher, someone we had trusted implicitly. The shock of that revelation was compounded by the cold, calculating motive behind it all. It turned out that Allison and Derek had hatched a sinister plan, an insurance scam designed to claim a whopping $2.5 million after my untimely death. Every moment I had spent battling for my life, every sacrifice made in the name of ambition, had been manipulated to serve their greed. As if that weren't enough, a final piece of the puzzle emerged, a hidden camera system discreetly installed in the basement of our house. The discovery of those cameras was like unearthing a trove of sinister secrets. The footage revealed everything, the infidelity that had been meticulously concealed, and, even more chilling, the planning of the assassination attempt on my life. Watching the recordings, I saw the cold efficiency of betrayal. Each frame a testament to the lengths they were willing to go to ensure that I'd never recover, both physically and financially. I felt a profound sense of isolation, as if I were suddenly the only genuine soul in a sea of deceit. Every memory of love and trust was tainted by the knowledge that the people closest to me had conspired behind my back. The house that had once been our sanctuary now felt like a carefully constructed stage for a drama I never auditioned for. A drama where every smile and whispered word had been a calculated move in a game I was doomed to lose. In that moment, the weight of the betrayal was almost too much to bear. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the events that had led to this catastrophic unraveling of my life. How had everything changed so drastically? How had love, which once filled every corner of my heart, become the instrument of my downfall? The lines between trust and treachery blurred into a nightmarish tapestry that I was forced to navigate alone. With each passing day, the healing process became intertwined with a burning need for answers and justice. I vowed to unearth every last detail of this elaborate scheme, to expose the sinister truth behind the facades that had crumbled so disastrously. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but I knew that reclaiming my life meant confronting not just the physical scars of that fateful night, but also the deep wounds of betrayal inflicted by those I had once called family. Now, as I stand on the precipice of a new beginning, I carry with me a resolve forged in the crucible of deceit and pain. The road to recovery is long and arduous, and the echoes of that terrible truth still haunt me. Yet, in the midst of all the darkness, there burns a small, relentless spark, a determination to rebuild, to seek justice, and ultimately, to find a way to transform this betrayal into a catalyst for a life more authentic and true. In the aftermath of the chaos, it felt like I was constantly walking through a fog of disbelief and sorrow. Derek had fled to Canada in a desperate bid to escape the fallout, but fate wasn't done with him yet. 6 months later, he was found dead in a hotel room. The news hit me hard. It was as if one betrayal after another was piling up, each one leaving a deeper scar than the last. Then there was Allison. After being questioned by the police about her role in the elaborate scheme against me, she vanished without a trace. Just like that, the woman I once trusted completely was gone, leaving behind nothing but a trail of shattered promises and unanswered questions. The life I had built, the life I believed in, seemed to crumble piece by piece. Determined not to be defined by this betrayal, I decided it was time to make a clean break. I sold the house that had been the stage for so much deception for $1.2 million. That sale wasn't just a financial transaction. It was my way of exorcising the ghosts of my past. I packed up and left New York behind, setting my sights on Seattle, a city renowned for its booming tech industry and its promise of new beginnings. Moving to Seattle felt like a fresh start, an opportunity to rebuild both my career and my sense of self. Starting at a large IT company in Seattle marked the beginning of that rebuilding process. I dove into my work with a mix of determination and a cautious optimism, eager to reclaim the passion for technology that had once defined me. In the midst of all this professional upheaval, an unexpected lifeline appeared in the form of Meredith, a former colleague. Meredith had always been a steady, reliable presence in the whirlwind of my tech career, but now she became something much more, a true friend. Meredith had also played a significant role during my absence by helping to look after Savannah. Knowing that my daughter was being cared for by someone I respected and trusted filled me with an immense sense of relief. Her kindness and support were like a beacon in the dark, a reminder that even after all the betrayal, there were still genuine people in this world. It was a comfort to know that amidst the ruins of what I'd lost, there was still something good I could hold on to. As the weeks turned into months, Seattle began to feel less like a refuge and more like home. The vibrant tech community, the steady hum of innovation, and the cool, refreshing air of the Pacific Northwest all contributed to a sense of rebirth. Every day presented new challenges and opportunities, and slowly but surely, I started piecing together a new life. A life defined not by the betrayals of the past, but by resilience and the promise of a better future. In those quieter moments, as I sat at my new desk, watching the rain patter against the window, I'd reflect on how far I'd come. The road here had been paved with loss and heartache, but it was also lined with the small, unyielding sparks of hope. Each line of code I wrote, every project I completed, was a step away from the darkness that had once consumed me. And with every kind word from Meredith and every memory of Savannah Smile, I was reminded that there was still so much worth fighting for. The journey was far from over, and the scars of the past would likely remain with me forever. But in the midst of the grief and betrayal, I found a renewed sense of purpose, a promise that even when life seems determined to break you, there's always a chance to rise again. In Seattle, I wasn't just surviving, I was slowly learning how to live again. 3 years after everything had seemingly fallen apart, life threw yet another twist my way, one that I never could have anticipated. It was on a slow, rainy afternoon when the call came through. The voice on the other end was clinical and detached, but the news was anything but Allison had been found. The details that followed were as shocking as they were gut-wrenching. According to the police, Allison had been held captive by Ryan Douglas, the ex-boyfriend of our daughter Savannah. It was a revelation that shattered the already fragile remnants of trust and loyalty I had clung to for so long. Ryan, of all people, had been lurking in the shadows of our lives, and now his true colors were laid bare in a manner that was both horrific and unforgivable. The authorities describe how Allison had endured unspeakable violence under his control. She had lost an eye, and the psychological scars ran deep. The extent of her suffering was almost too much to comprehend, and it left me grappling with a complex mix of emotions. Here was the woman who had once been a partner in everything I thought was real, now reduced to a shell of her former self, marked by the brutality of a man she once trusted. The legal aftermath was as disheartening as the news itself. Given the severity of her injuries and the profound psychological trauma she had suffered, the prosecutor's office ultimately decided not to press charges against Ryan. It was a decision that made little sense to me, a justice denied not because of a lack of evidence, but because of the sheer devastation Allison had endured. In a way, it felt like a bitter irony. After orchestrating the destruction of my life, those responsible for so much pain were walking free, their actions effectively absolved by the circumstances of their crimes. Amid all this, Savannah made a choice that added another layer of complexity to an already tangled web of relationships. She decided to take custody of her mother, a decision that in many ways was both courageous and heartbreaking. Savannah saw something in Allison that I no longer could, perhaps recognizing a spark of resilience or a need for compassion despite the scars. As for me, despite everything that had transpired, I agreed to help with the custody arrangement. Yet, deep down, I knew that I no longer considered Allison a part of my life. The betrayal and the pain had driven a wedge so deep that any semblance of the past seemed irretrievably lost. In the quiet moments that followed the announcement, I found myself wrestling with a profound sense of ambivalence. There is an undeniable part of me that still yearned for the comfort of familiarity, for the shared memories of happier times. But that yearning was quickly overridden by a stark awareness of the brutal reality we now faced, a reality where trust had been shattered beyond repair, and where the very foundations of my relationships had been irreversibly altered. As I tried to make sense of it all, I realized that the path forward was one I would have to navigate with both caution and resolve. Savannah, in her decision to care for her mother, had chosen a path of empathy and forgiveness, a path I couldn't fully endorse, even if I admired her strength. In helping her with custody, I wasn't reclaiming a lost piece of my past. I was merely trying to ensure that the little girl we once both cherished would be looked after in a world that had grown far too cruel. It's been hard, grappling with the knowledge that the people I once loved had become entangled in a web of violence, betrayal, and irrevocable loss. And yet, despite it all, I can't help but acknowledge that these experiences have reshaped me in ways I never imagined. I'm learning, albeit slowly, that sometimes the hardest choices aren't about who to trust or whom to hold on to. They're about how to move forward when everything you once believed in has crumbled around you. In the end, as I watch Savannah care for her mother, someone I can no longer call a partner, I'm reminded that life is rarely black and white. The lines have blurred into shades of gray, and while the wounds of the past will always be a part of me, they're now tempered by the resolve to find a way to live despite them. I continue to forge my own path, one day at a time, even as the ghosts of betrayal and violence linger in the corners of my mind. Looking back now, it's almost surreal to see how the twists and turns of life have finally led me here, standing at the edge of the Pacific with the warm Hawaiian sun setting behind us, surrounded by the people who truly matter. Meredith and I exchanged vows in a small, intimate ceremony on a beach in Hawaii, with family and friends gathered to celebrate a love that had weathered every storm imaginable. In that moment, every scar and every betrayal faded away, replaced by the promise of new beginnings and a future filled with hope. Not long after our wedding, we discovered that we were expecting twins, a boy and a girl. The news was like a burst of sunlight after years of relentless rain, a tangible sign that life was ready to offer us more joy, more laughter, and the chance to create something beautiful out of all the pain. With Meredith by my side, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I started channeling all that energy and passion into my work, and soon enough, I took the plunge and founded my own game company. The journey of building the company was as challenging as it was exhilarating. I poured every ounce of creativity and determination into it, drawing on the lessons learned from all the hardships I had faced. And then, almost like a miracle, our first project took off, soaring past every expectation. The game not only captivated players worldwide, but also generated a profit of over $150 million. It was a staggering success, and in that moment, I knew that my resilience had paid off. My dream of creating something meaningful had come true, and it felt like a full-circle moment, from that kid who once tinkered with broken electronics in a small town to a successful entrepreneur making his mark in the tech world. The ripple effects of this success were felt by everyone who had been part of my journey. Savannah, who had grown up amid the turbulence, found her own way in the tech world. Embracing the legacy of her father's passion for technology, she became a skilled programmer and eventually secured a role in my company. Watching her code and innovate filled me with immense pride. She was building her own future, one line of code at a time, in a field that had once been the very heart of my existence. And then there was Allison. Though the path she had walked was marred by unspeakable pain, both physical and emotional, there was a glimmer of hope in her slow, steady recovery. Under the devoted care of Savannah, who had taken custody and worked tirelessly to help her heal, Allison began the long process of reclaiming her life. I know I can never erase the past or the betrayals that came with it, but seeing her gradually regain strength and find a semblance of peace reminded me that even the deepest wounds could, over time, mend. After all the trials, the betrayal, the near-death experience, the years of uncertainty, I finally found happiness and peace. It wasn't an abrupt or dramatic turnaround, but a quiet, persistent rebuilding of life's foundation. Standing here today, with Meredith's hand in mine, watching the gentle ebb and flow of the ocean, I realized that every painful chapter led to this moment of profound clarity and joy. We all have our scars, our reminders of battles fought and lost, but it's in those scars that we often find the resilience to start anew. In the end, life isn't defined solely by its hardships, but by how we choose to rise after each fall. For me, embracing love, family, and the courage to dream again has transformed every setback into a stepping stone towards a future that I now cherish deeply. And as I look forward to welcoming our twins, I know that this is only the beginning, a chance to create a legacy of hope, innovation, and above all, the unyielding power of second chances.